It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Thursday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. Our featured story tonight, we're talking once again about the imminent war in Iran. And we're going to be doing it every night. Every night, we're going to talk a little bit about this war because the countdown has started. Today, President Trump unofficially announced a 10-day countdown to war. And we know that something's coming. Something's up. You got 2 aircraft carriers. You got over a dozen missile destroyers. You got THAAD systems, Patriot missile batteries, Minuteman missiles. You got Growlers, F-22s, F-35s. It's all there, locked and loaded, and there's going to be something. We don't know what that is yet, and we don't know what it is designed to achieve. But the announcement came today during a press conference at the first meeting of the Gaza Board for Peace that Trump is going to give Iran 10 days and said that he will make his decision within that time whether or not to go to war. There was also an exclusive piece in the Wall Street Journal that gives us some insight into his thinking. We talked all about this last night, what the strike is going to be and what the goal of the strike will be. I gave you some speculation, and now we have some more information about this. Today, there is an exclusive piece in the Journal talking about where Trump is at and what they say. The unnamed, anonymous officials in the White House have said that Trump is considering an initial strike, which will be minimal and will be in an attempt to compel Iran to surrender. If they do not surrender after that, then there will be a weeks-long assault meant to topple the government. That is according to these anonymous officials in the White House. I'm not buying that. I don't know if I believe that. And that, to me, sounds like a fake out. And that's my gut. I'll tell you some of my reasoning behind that. There's really no way to know. Only Trump knows, only his team knows exactly what he's going to do. But I don't think that's right, and I don't think that's correct. That is a planted story. And something you need to consider about every story coming out now about this is that they are all planted, okay? And I see this all the time. People are trying to parse and make predictions based on flight radar, and they're tracking the movement of the military, and people try to make predictions based on the headlines, and they talk about what is being reported by Barack Ravid and Axios, and they talk about the latest anonymous source in the Post, in the Journal, in the Times. What you have to understand is that when you are in, as we are right now, the build-up to a war, all of these things are being watched by everybody. So whether the United States tells its citizens to leave Iran immediately, that is going to be seen by Iran. And whether Israel is on their highest level of alert, that will be seen by Iran also. Whether the Wall Street Journal reports that Trump is considering a specific course of action, that will be seen by Iran as well. So can we read those at face value and say that they are a pure telegraph of the intentions of the administration or the plans of the administration? No. They are signals. Signals that are being deliberately sent out at a time of war, possibly to confuse, to mislead, or maybe they're real. But that is the purpose of them, and so we have to read them accordingly. That's always the mistake that I see people make. They take everything at face value, and you can't. You cannot do that, especially when it's coming in the press. So we'll talk all about that. We'll talk about this new piece and why I don't think that's likely. We're also going to talk tonight about this Religious Liberty Board. I have a super chatter. She's actually a friend of the show. I kind of bit her head off last night, and I feel very bad about it, and I'm very sorry. A friend of the show, Beth Marie, she wrote a book about me. She's been asking me to cover this story all week, and I didn't really see too much about it, haven't read too much into it, but I think it's actually an important story, and I'm going to cover it tonight. If you've been watching the show past couple days, you know what I'm talking about. There is a huge story this week about this Catholic woman. She was appointed to the Federal Religious Liberty Commission by President Trump, and she was recently publicly removed from the board because she said she wasn't a Zionist. And there's something very ironic about this, isn't it? Or maybe I should say, isn't there? She's appointed to the Religious Liberty Commission. The goal of the commission is to talk about religious liberty. Whether we have it, how do we expand it? Do we have the freedom to practice religion in America? A Catholic woman is on the commission. In this contentious Q&A session, she says, as a Catholic, I'm not a Zionist, and I don't support Israel. She gets terminated from the board. So now the Religious Liberty Commission doesn't have any religious liberty. We're trying to figure out, is there religious liberty in America? Well, I think we just found our answer. The answer is no. You are not allowed to not be a party to this other religion that we have in our country. And I think everybody knows the religion I'm talking about. It's the religion where we all have to bow down and worship Jews. We all have to worship Jews. We all have to worship Israel. Isn't that the religion? Because those are the only people you can't criticize. And that's the only sacrilege. And that is something which literally has theological tenets that we all must accept. 6 million, closest ally, Judeo-Christian. These are all things, they're practically a religious dogma that we have to accept. And as you know, if anybody opts out for any reason, in any way, whether they are being professional or crude, whether they have a rational reason or it's prejudiced, it doesn't even matter. If you don't observe this religion, you are ostracized from public life. You're banned from the club. You're banned from social media. You get kicked off the board. You're unemployable. Everybody knows it. And I'll be the first one to say, I am a Catholic. I am not a part of that religion. Holocaustianity, religious Zionism, that's not my religion. My religion is Catholicism. I'm a Catholic. My God is Jesus Christ, not these rabbinical Talmudic Jews. And I believe in the Catholic Church, not the Jewish state of Israel. That's my religion. Am I free to practice that in the 21st century in the United States? I don't think so, not anymore. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. Credit to this woman. God bless her. And I see she's been making the rounds. She was on Drop Site, Young Turks. She's been on a few different shows. So we'll talk a little bit about her story. It's very interesting. And it just goes to show. So many people came out to support Trump. All different walks of life. She happens to be a model. She happens to be a famous person and a Catholic. I don't know the rest of her political views, but all kinds of people came out to support Trump in 2016 because they're America first, because they're MAGA. People support that program. We're tired of the corruption. We're tired of the special interests. We're tired of the immigration. We're tired of wars. And Trump has basically made it his mission to alienate all of those people. The only people that he cares about, the only people this administration serves, is the donors. It's the grandest, most sickening irony of it all, isn't it? Forgotten men and women are forgotten. Catholics, whites, conservatives, patriots, forgotten. And the outsider has become the ultimate insider. The guy that was supposed to burn it all down is now like a Pied Piper leading everybody right back into the slaughterhouse. And the guy that was supposed to resist and fight the super PACs and the special interests and the banks and the donors, now they are his boss. Now they run him. They run the show. And I don't know at this point how you cannot be alienated by this administration. I mean, what are we actually even getting from it? We're not even getting the basics anymore. So we'll talk about that. It's going to be a good show. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show. Check out our merch store, Fuentes.store. We have our hats, Groyper Intelligence Agency, America First in camo. We have it in black. As seen on Ross Creations, the prank channel, Fuentes.store, we got t-shirts, hoodies, quarter zips. It's all there. If you want to support the show, subscribe at americafirst.plus. Become a plus subscriber at americafirst.plus. $15 a month. Get access to the entire archive. The website is really good. We're launching a new version of it, and the UI is excellent. You get an MP3 version of the show. You get everything I've ever done. Every speech, debate, interview, gaming stream, commentary stream. It's like thousands of hours of content. It's all there, searchable, easy to access. $100 a month, you get to be in a group chat with me and talk to me. And we just get to hang out and talk. And some of you guys use it and some of you abuse it. I'm in the group chat, I'm like, hey, what's up? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's Nick. And it's like, hey, we could just talk also. You're paying $100. But it's a lot of fun. I do voice content in there. I'm basically doing like a whole other show in there. Check it out, America First. It's so funny. People say, how do I get in the group chat? AmericaFirst.plus, that's the link. I literally get people emailing me and DMing me, say, how do I get in that group chat? I don't think I've ever talked about the group chat without saying the link. It's AmericaFirst.plus. That's the URL. Type it in. That's how you get there. Okay? So check that out. It's going to be a good show. Super slow week. Oh my goodness. Dude, nothing has happened in like 5 months. What the f***? Nothing ever happens, Chud. It's the age of nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens has moved into, is in Renegade. Seriously, when is the last time anything has happened? I remember when I did the Tucker interview, the reason it was so big is because nothing was going on, right? I think the last thing to happen was when Israel bombed Qatar and all that happened. Like Charlie Kirk died, Israel bombed Qatar, the General Assembly happened, and then the Gaza peace deal happened. Venezuela was sort of a big deal. The ICE idiot getting shot in the head, that was a big deal, I guess. But man, the winter during the midterms, it's like, bro. But 2027, that'll be our year. That's going to be a good year, Anyway, so yeah, I've just been struggling even to find anything to do. I did a gaming stream earlier in the evening with Sneeko and Bradley Martin. That was a lot of fun. I hope you caught that. I was over on Kick. I didn't stream it because I don't get paid. I'm just working overtime for Sneeko. It's crazy. Sneeko makes so much money from Kick, it's not even funny. Because Kick has a partner program where they pay you to stream. I got kicked out of that. They let me in, and then they kicked me out a day later. And Sneeko's on there just printing money. And I'm promoting it for free. I'm on his stream. I'm in the live chat. I'm playing games with him. But it's okay. I like Sneeko, and I like the content. So we were having a good time. It was me, Brad, Sneeko. We might make it a regular thing. I think I might do an Arc Raider stream with them next week. Love Brad. Brad is the man. Bradley, we got to glaze a little bit. That is a white-ass nigga going hard as fuck. And he goes hard as f. Remember when he slapped that guy? That was awesome. So Brad is a certified Wang half. Sneeko is not technically white, but he's going hard as f too. He's been doing some great stuff on Kick, great content. We had a little back and forth on the show this week, funny stuff. So we had a fun little Fortnite gaming stream. We all suck at Fortnite, though. We need a carry. Can somebody carry us, please? We cycle through the Fortnite carries, but then they all become washed. You get a Fortnite carry, and it's usually a guy who's like younger, and then he gets older, and then he sucks at Fortnite. It's just what happens. You're like 14 years old. You're cracked at Fortnite. I don't know what it is. It's the neuroplasticity. And then 10 years goes by, and then they become washed. And so we have no carry. We have nobody to carry us. I'm an old man. I'm 27. My brain is literally not fast enough to play the game. Bradley's 400 years old. Sneeko's 29. He's just a little bit older than me. So none of us can play. Like, none of us actually have the ability. So I don't know. Can we get Ninja? I don't even know who plays Fortnite anymore. Maybe we'll get Cheezer. I think he's good. But we'll be doing that. Well, we're doing Arc Raiders anyway, but it's kind of depressing that everybody sucks at Fortnite. Chad Champion sucks at Fortnite. Everybody sucks. But anyway, we had a good time. But we had fun with it. We did the emotes and we had a good time. Okay, with that out of the way, we're going to dive in. Hey, one other thing. Did you see Candace quote tweeted me today? Guys, why did she do it? Like, what is that? I'm trying not to read too much into that. What do you think she meant by that? She quote tweeted me. I said something like, I'm not voting Republican. I'm doing my usual thing. I'm not voting Republican. It's so funny. Everybody's like, yeah, we know you never vote. I'm like, okay, but I need to tell everyone. She quote tweeted and she's like, this is true. Guys, why do you think she quote tweeted me? What do you think she meant by that? What's her end game, Poll? Hey, Poll, what's her end game? Is she our guy? What did she mean by this? What did she mean by this? She quote tweeted me. Candace. Oh my gosh, Candace. You just can't stay away, can you? Candace, what are we doing? I mean, come on. What are we doing, Candace? Like, can we just stop? Can we just stop playing games already? I mean, seriously. Oh, yeah, you know, this woman, she's going to be the death of me, I tell you. Can't live with her, can't live without her. Isn't that what they say? Can't live with her, can't live without her. Candace Owens. Of all the tweets, replies, and quote tweets, and you walked into mine. Man, I don't know, guys. Deeply troubling, but that's how it goes, you know? Isn't that how it goes? Just when you're over it, just when you're over her, just when you're ready to begin your life, I'm free. You've forgotten about it. All the pain and all the fights and all the love letters. And then something just reminds you, and there you go again, a blast from the past. I don't know, guys. I don't know what I'm going to do with her. What are we going to do? You know what it is? I think she saw me flirting with that other black girl or something. Maybe she saw me say the thing about having a kid that's a black guy. Remember when I said that? Last night I said, oh, imagine race mixing with a black woman and your son is a black guy like George Floyd. Maybe she saw, I don't know. She's in my head again, guys. It's crazy. Anyway, you know what? It's fine. But honestly, really, it's fine. All right. Anyway, we're going to move on. I'm going to try to proceed with the show as normal. Like that didn't happen. Like it wasn't a red alert. DEFCON 1. All right, so that's the only other thing I can think of that even happened today. But we're going to move on. We're going to get into our show here. We're going to get into our breaking news and our featured story. What do you guys think? No, but tell me in the super chats. Hey, tell me what do you think about, what did she mean by that? Why did she quote tweet me, guys? So bold. What a bold move. Act normal. Don't act like a chud. Hey, dude, just act cool. Play it cool. Don't be so chalant. All right, but we are going to move on. Our feature story, we're once again talking all about the war in Iran. I'm not going to spend too much time about it tonight because we've been talking about it. Talked about it last night. I've been talking about it. I think you guys know the score here. I'll do a little bit of background tonight, but for the most part, I want to talk about the latest. So as you know, we have this huge buildup of military force in the Middle East. And it is becoming very clear that there is going to be some form of action. Up until this point, it was a question whether anything would happen. Why is that a question? Because people are speculating that this is a deterrent. We're moving all of this force there to make a very credible threat. We want to make it look like we're getting ready to bomb Iran so that we can get them to come to the table and agree to our demands. I hesitate because a lot of people are saying we are trying to get them to negotiate. It's not about negotiations. We want Iran to give up nuclear enrichment. They are refusing. We are giving them an ultimatum. Now, it has become clear in just the last week that this is not about a credible demonstration of force. That's clearly not what this is anymore. This is not a threat. It's not a bluff. This is real. There's going to be a strike. It seems very obvious now that that is where this is headed. Obviously, nothing is ever 100%, but it seems very likely that there will be some form of military action, and that's where this is going. Now the question is, what is that going to be? Because as you know, a month ago, the Trump administration was considering carrying out a limited strike on Iran in the middle of these nationwide protests. And Trump stood down because, in the end, actually there's two reasons. They did not have enough firepower to topple the government, which implies that their goal is to topple the government. And secondly, because of the intercession of our allies. Because all of our allies in the region, Turkey, Pakistan, the Gulf countries, Egypt, they all came to the United States and told us not to intervene. So that bought Iran another month. The combination of those two things, the lack of U.S. presence in the Middle East coupled with last-minute intervention of basically all of our allies, it bought Iran another month. And in that period of time, the United States has increased the amount of naval firepower, air firepower, everything, so that now we are locked and loaded, offensively and defensively. We are ready to carry out a sustained air campaign against Iran for weeks, and that is a very complicated ordeal. And we are also ready to defend against any kind of retaliation. U.S. personnel has been moved out of harm's way, and additional defensive systems have been deployed. And that includes not just another THAAD system and Patriot missile batteries, but also missile destroyers that have radar systems that can detect and also intercept incoming ballistic missiles. So we're ready to go. Now, as we talked about last night, the question is, what is Trump going to do? Well, Trump and Rubio and Steve Witkoff have come to Iran and said, this can all be avoided. You do have one last chance if you give up your nuclear enrichment. You have to forfeit your stockpile of enriched uranium, and you have to give up your centrifuges. And they are saying, short of that, we are not going to destroy you. Iran is miscalculating right now. They still think this is a game. And they're stalling and they're trying to buy time and they think they still have some cards to play. And they're coming to the administration and they're saying, well, maybe we'll give up our stockpile, but we're not going to give up enrichment. And if we agree to restrict enrichment, well, we want sanctions relief. And this is what has been playing out in the past week 2 weeks. Iran is floating these concessions, and the United States is not biting. White House is looking at Iran and saying, yeah, not good enough. That is not actually on the table anymore. You had your chance last year. If you wanted sanctions relief and investment, and you wanted some kind of deal like that, the time for that was last April. It is February 2026. It's a new deal, and the deal is this. We get everything we want, or we destroy you, and that's the deal. And Iran is still playing games. Well, we don't want to meet in Turkey. Well, we don't want to talk about missiles and proxies. Well, we'll give you the stockpile, but we're not going to give up enrichment. And the United States has been very clear, basically since Tuesday, and it is uniform. The press secretary, spokesman for the State Department, Rubio, the vice president, and the president have all said, look, we are over here, and Iran is still all the way out here. If they don't come to our position, we're going to war. And Iran is showing no willingness to do this. So like I said, there's going to be an intervention. The question now is how big, how long? Okay, I hear it. Let's rephrase that. That's just disgusting. Can you get your mind out of the gutter, please? That's just gross. I don't know why you even went there. The question is the scope and the scale. Just filthy. What a filthy, disgusting show. The scope and the scale of the attack. And then, and this is a related question, what is the purpose of the attack? Is it going to be a surgical strike, a very limited strike, maybe a one and done, hit them really hard one time? Or is it going to be a sustained strike over a period of a week or multiple weeks, and we hit them really hard multiple times? And the related question is, what is the purpose of this? Is the purpose of the strike to topple the government, which would you could say that is the maximal option, is full-on regime change. We are trying to utterly destroy the regime by decapitating its political and military leadership, destroying all its defenses, its strategic weapons. Or is the goal more limited? Do we seek to destroy their ballistic missile stockpile, which would leave them defenseless? Do we seek to kill some of their leadership, but not all? And maybe that's the Ayatollah, and maybe it's some of the more hardline military leadership. And maybe in that scenario, the goal is not actually this time to have a once and for all regime change, but to degrade Iran politically and militarily so that whatever remains will be compelled to make a deal. So that if they wipe out, let's say, half the political leadership or the top of the political leadership, then the successors might be pliable. If we destroy all of their missile systems and they're a defenseless country, being vulnerable, they will have no more cards to play. They will be completely defenseless, and then they will raise the white flag. They'll see that the writing is on the wall. The regime is effectively over. Now, we have a report today from the Wall Street Journal. It's an exclusive, and it cites unnamed sources inside the administration, and they talk about President Trump's thinking on this, and I'll read it to you. What they say is that the president is considering a more surgical strike, and if Iran does not make an agreement after that, then we're going to get a more comprehensive strike. And this is a story from the Journal. It says, quote, President Trump is weighing an initial limited military strike on Iran to force it to meet his demands for a nuclear deal. That would be a first step designed to pressure Tehran into an agreement, but it would fall short of a full-scale attack that could inspire a major retaliation. The opening assault, which, if authorized, could come within days, would target a few military or government sites. If Iran still refused to comply with Trump's directive to end its nuclear enrichment, the U.S. would respond with a broad campaign against regime facilities, potentially aimed at toppling the Tehran regime. The first limited strike option, which hasn't been previously reported, signals Trump might be open to using military force not only as a reprimand for Iran's failure to make a deal, but also to pave the way for a U.S.-friendly accord. One of the people said Trump could ratchet up the attacks, starting small before ordering larger strikes until the Iranian regime either dismantles its nuclear work or falls. A limited strike would lead Iran to walk away from negotiations, at least for a significant time period. a regional official said, especially when officials in Tehran are currently formulating their response to U.S. demands. On Thursday, Trump said he would decide his next moves on Iran within 10 days. Later, he told reporters his timeline was a maximum of roughly 2 weeks. He said, "We're going to make a deal or get a deal one way or the other." So this is some credible information. The timeline is 10 days to 2 weeks. And that does seem to be the timeline. On Tuesday at Switzerland, they said Iran has 2 weeks. So that would be a week from this coming Tuesday, which is in, a half week. If the timeline is now 10 days, that tracks. That makes sense. If the timeline is roughly 2 weeks, this is consistent. So this is roughly the timeline we are working with. And I would actually go further and say, I would imagine there might be strikes within that timeline. I know that Trump loves the element of surprise. And so if he says it's 10 days to 2 weeks, maybe the strike comes towards the end of that deadline, but not outside of it. Maybe that's the thinking. There is a Jewish holiday called Purim, which celebrates the victory of the Jews over the Persians. That's in the beginning of March. Maybe that's the timeline for the attack, because the Jews and the Israelis love their numerology. Last year's attack commenced on June 13th, otherwise known as 613, which is a number of commandments in the Jewish Bible, in the Mishnah. So, are we going to wait outside of those 14 days and get to Purim? Might it be inside those 14 days? I think roughly, though, we're working with a timeline like that to prepare for a military strike. As to Iran, I think that Iran underestimates the peril they are in. And maybe their strategy is simply to stall. They are engaging the United States in talks. The Ayatollah has given permission for the president and the foreign minister to engage the United States in talks. But they're not budging. They're not budging on enrichment. There's no sign that they're budging. They're agreeing to some compromises, but their red line remains, which is they're not giving up enrichment. And they're effectively daring the United States to come at them. And they think that they are safe because I think they underestimate the willingness of the United States to go all in. They believe that in order for the United States to topple their regime, the United States will need a ground force, will need to invade. And they don't believe the United States will do that. And they also think that any protracted war with Iran will bleed into the midterms. And they underestimate Trump's willingness to engage Iran when the midterms are so soon. But I think that's a miscalculation. I think that the president is looking for a quick and decisive win here. I think, as we saw in Venezuela, he is willing to act decisively, and he's willing to act creatively. He's throwing out that old playbook. It isn't 2003. It isn't 2011. It's not like these other wars. And Trump, although he thinks that regime change is sometimes necessary, and I think that Trump loves this maximum pressure strategy that sometimes overflows into military action, it is a different playbook. I would call it like a form of smart power. And I hate that expression. That comes from Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State. It's not soft power, and it's not exactly the most blunt form of hard power, but it's hard power applied in a smart way. Like what happened in Venezuela. The conventional thinking in Venezuela is that we're going to invade, or that we're going to do a major air campaign and we're going to fight their entire military and then we're going to kill everyone in the government. And Trump threw that old playbook out. It wasn't that. It was an abduction. It was an extradition. We just went in using very unconventional tactics and unconventional, perhaps, weapons. And by overwhelming their air defenses, we were able to get special forces in there, pick up the guy, and take him out. And then we, in a very strange way, it's very bizarre, we are now working with the remnant of the decapitated government. The regime remains in place. The security architecture remains in place. We kidnapped their leader, which is just like the act of war to end all acts of war. And you have our energy secretary posing for a photo op with the vice president serving the president that we kidnapped. It's unconventional. It's different. It's a different playbook. And I think that Iran, they are looking at the United States in the same way that they would have looked at the Biden administration or the Obama administration or the Bush administration. But it isn't like that. It's a new sheriff, and Trump doesn't play on that timeline. That's not his tempo, and that's not his MO. So I do believe that Trump is willing to act here. And the question now, like I said, is what is it going to be? And according to this article, it says that Trump is thinking about doing a very limited strike. And then if Iran continues to be obstinate, then we're going to go in for a more comprehensive strike. Now, here's why I don't think that is the case. They say that Trump is seeking a limited strike to avoid a retaliation. That if we only hit Iran a little bit, then they're not going to hit us back, maybe at all, or maybe not in a significant way. And when I hear that, when I read that, I think that is just not how Trump operates. Trump doesn't do surgical strikes to avoid a retaliation. Also, once you hit Iran, you lose control of the escalation ladder. Once you hit Iran one time, then the ball is in their court. You drop any ordinance on Iran, and then it is up to them how to respond, and against who, and where, and how much. Now, it's not likely necessarily that if we hit Iran a little bit, that they're going to respond in a disproportionately strong way. I mean, I don't think that's likely. But I don't think that Trump is the type of person, he doesn't seem like the type of president that's going to do a pinprick strike, wait and see, ask them again nicely, will you negotiate, and then go in further. Because at that point, you've lost the element of surprise. You've lost the initiative. It's their turn, so to speak. And I guess it would really depend on what that first strike might look like. And based on what happened in Venezuela, that's just really hard to predict. What would the targets be? Are they going to hit the ballistic missiles? And maybe that might make sense. If we hit all their ballistic missile launch platforms, that would suppress their ability to retaliate. Maybe that's the solution. If we attack their ballistic missile launch platforms in a way that is decisive, then that would actually suppress their ability to retaliate. Maybe they could not retaliate. And without any kind of strategic weaponry at all, without their nuclear hedge, without their missiles, without their proxies, well, then they are naked. They are completely vulnerable. And so that might be an option where, at that point, they would be willing to capitulate. Or maybe it is attacks on the regime. Is it an attack on the Ayatollah? That almost certainly is something that you don't walk back from. I don't know that Iran could come to the table after that. Maybe it's an attack on their military leadership. I think that too might have the opposite effect. And then, if Iran capitulates, well, I don't know. I don't see how they could have any confidence that there wouldn't be more strikes against them later by Israel, or by the United States, or a combination of Israel and the United States. So if I had to guess, I think that this is a form of, I don't know what the terminology would be, but I think they're trying to throw Iran off the scent here with this. I think this is a feeler. I think this is a signal. I think this is being deliberately put out by the administration. And maybe they're testing the waters even on how this will be received by the American public. Maybe they're putting this out there, testing the waters with how Iran will respond. If there's a credible threat that the United States is going to make a move like this, maybe that increases Iran's willingness to negotiate before they're hit at all and trapped in this cycle. But I don't think this resembles what the ultimate plan will look like. I think if there's going to be a strike, it's going to be a very hard strike. I think it's going to be a very big strike, and it's going to be a surprise. And I think that Trump is going to leave Iran in ruins and maybe let a remnant of the regime make a decision. And the reason why I say this, and this was sort of my prediction last night, is that the calculus about this strike centers on the fact that regime change is really not desirable and not feasible, To dislodge the Iranian regime, as many people have said, you need more than air power. And that's really all that is there right now. We don't even have a lot of air power. If you want to dislodge the Iranian regime, air power is insufficient. Naval power is insufficient. And we don't even have a lot of it there. We wouldn't even have sufficient air and naval power if we were pursuing regime change with the ground force. So we just don't have the force posture for that to be feasible, to dislodge a government, defeat a 1 million-man army, and whatever remnant there would be from the Revolutionary Guard or from the military or loyalists to the Ayatollah. It just isn't there. Nor do we want to do that. That's also not desirable. The last thing the U.S. government wants is a ground war in the Middle East for a variety of reasons. Because of the debt, because we have all these other responsibilities. We are fighting Russia in Ukraine. We are planning to fight China in Taiwan. The last thing we want is to be spread thin with Patriot missiles, for example, but also other kinds of weapons, aircraft carriers. We don't want to be tied down. We don't want to be on the hook because we're preparing for other conflicts in the Caribbean, in the Pacific, in the Indo-Pacific, I should say. So I don't think even the Pentagon wants that. I don't think the administration, that's just not even in the cards. What's more, even if you were to somehow cause chaos inside Iran, maybe you take out the Iranian regime with air power, then you get chaos. There is no alternative regime. There is no political alternative. There are no other institutions. There's no leader that has legitimacy. In order to have a regime change, you need to have a backup plan. You need to have a plan in place to stabilize the country, and then you need a replacement regime that can restore order. And there is nothing resembling that. There is no stabilizing force. There is no ground force. There is no alternative institution. There's no alternative political leadership that can take the place of the Ayatollah. And so what happens if you simply destroy the regime? Well, then you just get a humanitarian crisis and chaos. The borders open up, the refugees start pouring out, you get armed gangs, you get Islamism, you get probably, in the end, maybe a government that is worse than the one that came before, or the complete breakup of the country. And either way, this is catastrophic. This is not only is this not in the best interest of the United States, but it's also not in the best interest of our allies. That is not in the best interest of the Emirates, Qatar, or Saudi Arabia for there to be all this trouble in Iran. Not least of all because there are significant Shiite populations inside a few of these countries, like Saudi's eastern province and in Bahrain. You have a revolution in Iran, and in particular, you have a revolution against the Islamist government. Well, what effect does that have on Saudi Arabia with the Shiites or everybody that's under the thumb of a hereditary theocratic monarchy? And the same story is true in Bahrain. So the government, the U.S. government, doesn't want the instability and doesn't have the force posture and doesn't want to make the commitment, and neither does the Gulf. The Gulf doesn't want the instability. The Gulf doesn't want the war. The Gulf doesn't have the force posture there. They're not even allowing us to use their airspace. They want out of it. So we don't have anything resembling a coalition. Nobody is willing. Nobody's cooperating. Nobody supports it, least of all our own government. So what the United States is looking for is compliance with limited intervention. And if I had to guess, with a significant percentage of the regime intact. I don't think the U.S. government wants the Iranian regime necessarily to be replaced by something else. I think that what the United States wants is to make the Iranian regime bow and give up the centrifuges. Now, the outstanding question inside of this, which is sort of interesting, is this is where you see the fundamental disconnect between Washington and Tel Aviv. We are thinking about the calculus of the United States and, to a lesser extent, the calculus of our allies, Doha, Abu Dhabi, and Riyadh. We're thinking about what is our grand strategy for the world and how does the Middle East fit in it? What is the strategy of our regional allies here that we have significant investment with and we have defensive guarantees and military commitments with these other countries? And when you think about the calculus here, when you actually break it down, we don't want a ground war. We don't even really want regime change. We don't want what is required for regime change. We don't want regime change as an outcome because the instability is too much to bear. And when you basically say it out loud like this, you realize we are completely out of step with Israel, because what Israel wants, as I have said for the past 2.5 years, and even longer than that, Israel fundamentally seeks regime change. Israel does not want a deal. Okay, and it's so funny because people keep talking about this mythical deal that is it's just so elusive. We're trying to get a deal. We just want them to come to the table. And here's what you need to understand. A deal is desirable for Iran, and it is desirable for the Gulf, and it is desirable for us. Why? Because with a deal, the Iranian regime can survive. That's why they want it. A deal means sanctions relief. Sanctions relief means their currency recovers, their economy recovers, they rebuild their infrastructure. It means collective security. It means they can thaw and normalize relations with Saudi Arabia, with Egypt, with Pakistan, with Turkey, with all these countries. And with a diplomatic thaw, with economic interdependence in the region, and maybe this is the most important thing of all, with a working relationship with the United States, they have something resembling collective security. And they feel more safe. They get that economic stability. They potentially find new allies in the region. And it makes it so that other countries do not want to participate in a war against them. So Iran wants this because if they get a deal, then they are golden, then they survive. And the Islamic Republic lives to fight another day. And it's not impossible. People are always saying, well, Iran and its theocratic Shiite government is going to end eventually anyway because the people don't really support it. Well, the counter argument is look at Saudi Arabia. And I know that's not a perfect comparison. I understand that. But of course, the real reason there is so much instability in Iran, it really has nothing to do with the type of the regime. It has to do with the sanctions, the industrial sabotage, the diplomatic isolation. Iran cannot have an economic relationship with Europe or the United States or most of our allies, and they're being attacked all the time. They can barely sell their oil. They have to sell it at a discount to China, and they can't even sell all of it, and their infrastructure is being attacked all the time. So Iran wants a deal. We want a deal. The Gulf wants a deal. Why? Because then it means we can stabilize the region and we can leave. If Iran is behaving, if Iran doesn't have nuclear centrifuges, then we really don't have to worry about them that much. And we could go and focus on the regions that matter to us, which are the Caribbean and the Indo-Pacific. We can worry about the Strait of Malacca, not the Strait of Hormuz, the island chain, not the Persian Gulf. We can worry about even our own backyard. We can worry about South, Central, and Latin America in general. That would be the goal. That's preferable for the United States. What is preferable for Israel, again, is that they do not want a deal because they want to see the Iranian regime collapse. Why? Because the revolutionary theocratic government of Iran actually has a message that appeals to Muslims throughout the Middle East. So this is why Iran is so powerful. They have a revolutionary message, and they are now the patron of all these proxies in the region. The Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hezbollah in Iraq. There are minorities, or in some cases, majority of Shiites in some of these other countries, like I said, like Bahrain, Saudi Arabia. This is a problem for Israel because it gives Iran influence in these countries. And if Iran has influence in these countries and has armies in these countries, then that means that they are a counterweight to Israel's influence in the Middle East. There is balance. Saudi Arabia doesn't have the same influence like that in the way that Iran does. And so Iran, with a huge population and a huge economy and lots of oil and a massive military and an an idealistic or ideological message that appeals to populations in many countries, that makes them a very formidable competitor in the Middle East. And Israel doesn't like that. What's more, Iran and Israel are set against each other. They are permanent adversaries. Iran supports the aspirations of the Palestinians for statehood, and Iran ultimately is talking about a nuclear weapon because they want to be a regional power. To the extent that Iran makes a deal with the United States, and like I said, they're golden and they get to remain in perpetuity, that means that Israel cannot have uncontested influence in the region. So they don't want a deal that enshrines the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. They actually oppose a deal for that very reason. If a deal keeps the Iranian regime in place, then they are actually incentivized to sabotage any deal. They hate a deal. So people say, well, it's a question of, can we get a good deal? Can we get Iranians to make a deal? They do not want a deal. That is not their goal. They don't want the happy ending, in other words. In our minds, we're thinking that's the happy ending. How can we possibly get to this situation where everybody's at peace and there doesn't need to be a war and we can have diplomacy prevail and everybody can walk away happy? No, Israel wants to rain on that parade because that is not their happy ending. Their happy ending is that Iran falls and the regime falls. And ideally, Iran is split up into different countries. And maybe you have a Kurdish country come into existence. Maybe you have Kurdistan. You have Rojava in Syria. You've got Iraqi Kurdistan, Iranian Kurdistan, maybe even Turkish Kurdistan. And Kurdistan becomes its own country, and it's Israel's closest ally. And then that becomes a hedge against Turkey. That diminishes Syria and the new government there. That diminishes government in Iraq, and it splits apart Iran. Maybe there's going to be a Turkic country that comes out of Iran. Who knows? But Israel actually wants chaos there. That is a country that is too big to exist. Israel wants it to be dismembered, chaotic, weak, or subservient to the United States and Israel. So the reason I spell this out, and maybe I'm repeating myself a little bit, is so that you can understand, yes, the United States has all these plans about how they want this to go. And we're being told about it all the time. Well, there's this impasse over centrifuges and the negotiators are working out a deal. You have to understand that is just not the whole story here. And what must always be considered is that Israel is dead set on all of this failing. We are diametrically opposed to Israel on Iranian policy. We want a deal. They want chaos. We want diplomacy. They want a war. We want to prevent a regime change if possible. They need a regime change. It is imperative for them. And that is why they got Trump in office. The reason being is because they know that Trump is the one guy who might be the least likely in the world to make a deal. Because Trump ripped up the first deal, Trump killed Qasem Soleimani, and Trump believes that the Iranians are trying to assassinate him. So Israel has engendered all this bad blood. They've made Trump the mortal enemy of Iran, and now they've made him president so that he might actually preclude the United States from making a deal as a guy because of this grudge. So it's not about centrifuges and it's not about missiles. It is about regime change. And Israel doesn't want Iran to have centrifuges, and Israel doesn't want Iran to have missiles for the same reason that Israel destroyed Hezbollah and Assad and the Houthis and the rest of it first, because they want to make Iran defenseless so they can destroy them. And that is why Iran won't make a deal. Iran is not going to give up their missiles and their nukes because then they know what comes next. We're telling them, look, we're going to destroy you. If you don't give up your nukes and missiles, we will destroy you. And Iran is saying, look, if we give up our nukes and missiles, then Israel's going to destroy us anyway. At least with the nukes and missiles, we have a fighting chance. At least with missiles, we're a porcupine here. And we can make it very costly and prohibitive for you or Israel to intervene. If we're sitting on a pile of 2,000 ballistic missiles, then everybody knows that if the United States goes in, people are going to die. We're going to rain missiles on Israel. We're going to rain missiles on aircraft carriers and bases. And this is the same deterrence logic of a nuclear arsenal. Why does a country get a nuclear bomb? To become a porcupine, to make it more costly to intervene than it otherwise would be, and basically make it detrimental or lethal. If you invade North Korea, everyone's getting nuked. Dead man switch. The regime cannot be allowed to fall, because if it does, they press one button, and South Korea, Japan, the United States all get nuked. Well, the missiles are the same logic. The nuclear hedge was that, and the missiles are the same logic. If the Iranian regime feels as though it is going, they could press that button. We got nothing left to lose. And Israel's a very tiny country. If 1,000 ballistic missiles are falling on you all at the same time, now that's not as bad as a nuke, but that's not a great day either. And Israel doesn't have a lot of population centers, and, they can't shoot all the missiles down. If you shoot down 90% of 2,000 missiles, that's still 200 missiles that are getting in, and that's a bad day. So this is the logic there. We're trying to get a deal. Iran won't make it because the deal is going to make regime change inevitable. So that's why I think we are set, whether we want to or not, on a very decisive confrontation. It's hard for me to see, even if Iran were to capitulate to all our demands, all that does is make them prone. That's all that does. It just makes them vulnerable. They make that deal, and then you are inviting aggression. And aggression comes in many forms. Israel has said repeatedly, this is their own leadership. Israel says, we want to open up a new front in Iran. They say, we just want to control Iran's airspace the way we do with Syria. Because what happened in Syria? When the Assad regime was on the back foot, Israel was able to just do airstrikes all day long there with impunity. Syria had no ability to retaliate. They had no defenses. And so it was just open season. For a decade, Israel was able to go in wherever, whenever they felt like it, bomb anyone, anything that they wanted, even the Iranian embassy at one point, or the Iranian consulate. And Israel is out there saying, we want Iran to be the same way. Well, why can't Israel do that in Iran right now? Because Iran has missiles. They have missile factories built inside mountains underground because Iran has air defenses. So that's why they want the United States to come in, take all that stuff away by bombing it or through a deal, so that then Israel can open up that front and you can get the Arab Spring can visit Iran. A Persian Spring can begin. That's the goal. And by the way, the reason they say that out loud is to scare the Iranians. That's why they say it. Why do you think I know that? Because it's in the Jerusalem Post. It's in I-24. Israel's out there all the time saying, we want to bomb Iran. We can't wait to go to war with Iran. The decision's already been made. We want to bomb them all the time. The reason they say that is because Tehran hears that, and Tehran says, well, so we're never giving up our missiles. As a matter of fact, we'll do a preemptive strike because we're going to lose them in a war. We're going to lose them in negotiations. Well, we built them and we're going out anyway, so we might as well use them. That's the logic here. So people think we're going to wiggle our way out of this one. It's not going to happen here. This is going to end in a decisive confrontation because that is what Tel Aviv wants. That is what they have always wanted. That is what happened in Iraq. That is what happened in Syria, Libya. That is just what happens. And like I said, the grand prize is that then they control the whole region. And that's worth it to them. They're willing to lose Europe. They're willing to lose the Muslim world because they're not counting on returning to the status quo from before this conflict. And that includes, within that status quo, the Islamic Revolutionary Government remaining in place. So that's where we are. 2 weeks, countdown, 2 weeks to the war. And I don't think it's going to be a pinprick strike and then we're going to ask them politely again. And then we go, I don't think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be heavy and it's going to be creative like Venezuela, unpredictable. That is Trump's MO. He loves the element of surprise. And you got pressure on the timeline because, one, the longer we wait, the more Iran rebuilds their capability. And two, you got the midterms in 8 months. So the longer we wait, that window is closing before we're in an election. It becomes a campaign issue. And Democrats are going to say, well, we don't want to support the war. So that's where we are. We are going to move on, though. We're going to get into this other story here about the Religious Liberty Commission. And like I said, there's been this super chatter, friend of the show, who's been asking me to cover this, and finally we're going to get to it. And there's not a lot to say about it. I said the other night, I went off a little bit, that it's kind of like a fairly basic story, but it's worth talking about, I suppose. So earlier in Trump's second term, he appointed this Federal Religious Liberty Commission, and it's made up of religious leaders and conservatives. And I suppose the purpose of it is to enhance religious freedom in America. And it's sort of a throwaway. Is this really a real policy-making body? They're supposed to make suggestions. It's one of these things. It's really political. But they put together this commission. And the reason that it is in the news is because one of its members has been fired because she dared to criticize the government of Israel. It's a Catholic woman, a former model. Her name is Carrie Prejean. She was appointed to the commission as a Catholic to fight for religious liberty for Catholics. They recently held an event, and this event was about the subject of anti-Semitism. She raised the question, if I am against Zionism, does that make me an anti-Semite? Am I allowed to be against Zionism? And she was told effectively, no, you are not allowed to be against Israel. And then she was fired for asking the question. And this is the story. It says, quote, a member of the Federal Religious Liberty Commission has been ousted after a hearing this week that featured tense exchanges on the definition of anti-Semitism. The ousted member, Carrie Prejean Boller, had defended prominent commentators Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. The Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, the chair of the commission, said in a statement yesterday, no member of the commission has the right to hijack a hearing for their own personal and political agenda on any issue. This is clearly, without question, what happened Monday in our hearing on anti-Semitism in America. This was my decision. Prejean Boller challenged Patrick's authority to remove her, saying only President Trump has the power. In a post on the social media site X, she said Patrick's actions reflect a Zionist political agenda. Prejean Boller's removal came amid a wider, increasingly contentious debate over whether the right should be given a platform, or should give a platform, rather, to commentators espousing anti-Semitic views. It followed a hearing on Monday in Washington focused on anti-Semitism, featuring multiple witnesses, including firsthand accounts of students and others who said universities failed to protect Jewish students amid pro-Palestine protests. Prejean had sharp exchanges with witnesses during the hearing. Seth Dillon of the Babylon Bee was there to testify that conservatives need to push back against anti-Semitism. Prejean challenged him, questioning whether critics of Israel should be considered anti-Semitic. Dillon said no, but that context matters. She also questioned whether social media sites should be pressured to ban quotations of a Bible verse that attributes the death of Jesus to Jews. And she disputed Dillon's criticisms of Owens, saying that she had never heard her say anything anti-Semitic. So this is what happened. And it just goes to show, this is pretty amazing. You have a commission on religious freedom. And isn't that the subject of everything in this country? Do we have a First Amendment? Do we have freedom of speech? Do we have freedom of religion? You have a commission that is established on the basis, it's in the name, for religious freedom. And a Catholic woman, a Christian Catholic woman, is on the commission, and she is fundamentally asking a question about her religious liberty as a Catholic. As Christians, we actually are set against rabbinical Judaism and Zionism as a political ideology. That is not something that we support. The entire basis of our religion is that Jesus Christ is the promised Messiah in the Old Testament, something the Jews don't believe. One of the reasons the Jews do not believe this is because Jesus arrived promising a heavenly kingdom, not an earthly kingdom. Well, what's the relevance? The Jews, in defiance of God and having rejected their own Messiah, have established a country in Israel in preparation for what they think will be their worldly Messiah, who they think will bring them an earthly kingdom. Catholics cannot support this. By definition, our Messiah arrived, and his kingdom is not of this world. It's not going to be a Jewish state in Israel. As a matter of fact, it's not on earth at all. It's a church. It's a heavenly kingdom. It's in heaven. And the Messiah arrived. The king already arrived. The king of the Jews, the king of Israel, he was here 2,000 years ago. We're not waiting for him to come back when these people rebuild the third temple by killing millions of people or thousands of people. So it is actually our religious liberty to be able to say this. No, I'm not a Zionist. No, I don't support Israel. And no, I don't support the Talmud. I think that's heretical. And no, I don't support rabbinical Judaism. I don't support any of that. And for saying this, you're kicked off of the Religious Liberty Commission. It's a commission for religious liberty. If we as Catholics express our religion, you're kicked off that body. And so what rights do we have? Think about it this way. Jews go to college, and they're overrepresented by 2,000% in the highly selective schools. Jews go to college, and you have at the same time protests occurring about what is happening in Israel. And for the Jews, this is a civil rights violation. They literally have taken it to the Department of Justice and say that if Palestinians or pro-Palestine groups are hosting protests, the Jews say that's a civil rights violation. That's discrimination. That's antisemitism. If you support Palestine, our civil rights are being violated. And that is the basis of the hearing. So Jews cannot be critiqued. Israel cannot be protested. Nobody can talk about this religion. Nobody can oppose the religion. Nobody can oppose the country. Those are their rights as Jews. As Christians, we can't even disagree. We can't even speak our mind about these things, or else we get removed. Is that a civil rights violation for us? Is it a civil rights violation when we have to hear about Judeo-Christianity, Holocaustianity? We have to hear about all that. Is that a violation of our civil rights? And you see, this is a Catholic woman who I imagine is a Trump supporter. She gets thrown off the commission. Where is Trump defending her? Hey, where's J.D. Vance defending her? Where is the recent Catholic convert J.D. Vance on this one? Is he going to put her back on the board? Because he just converted. This is his religion too. Is he going to speak out in favor of her? What about Trump? And you realize that not only is the whole country under the spell of this false religion, but in particular, it is the Republican Party, as we all know, and it's this administration. Ironically, if you're a critic of Israel, you would probably have a better shot at staying on that board under a Democrat administration than you would a Republican. And don't get me wrong, you know me, I'm not a Democrat, and obviously the Democrats have their problems. They support Israel too, and they support abortion, and they support a lot of wicked things in their own right. But what does it say? I'm making a point here. What does it tell you about the Republican Party that if you have two religious liberty commissions, you would actually last longer on the Democrat one criticizing Israel than you do on the Republican one? If you were a Catholic under the AOC presidency and Ryan Grimm is in the cabinet with Hassan Piker, you probably have more latitude to have the Catholic position on Israel than you do in a Republican one. Because the difference is in the Republican administration, you have these Zionists all over the White House. They are all over the admin. And I think to a much greater extent that you do the other way around. So I saw this. It's pretty outrageous. But I also said the other night, I don't think anybody should really be surprised. This is just what you're in for. And that's actually why the Trump government was empowered. Everywhere you look, this is what you see. I mean, literally think of the biggest issues of our time right now. War in Iran. Who is it for? Israel. Acquisition of Warner Brothers by Paramount. Who is it for? Israel. Acquisition of TikTok by Larry Ellison. Who is it for? Israel. All these different departments and agencies. The education department, they're shaking down Harvard, Columbia, UPenn. Who is it for? Israel. It's over these Palestinian protests. Even the Religious Liberty Commission. Is this for Christians? No, it's to give a hearing for Shabbos Kestenbaum to complain about anti-Semitism at Harvard. Department of Homeland Security has banned my friends from coming into America. Their tourist visas have been suspended because they have criticized Israel on social media. Think about it. We do not have mass deportations of illegal aliens, but if you try to apply for a visa from Europe, having criticized Israel, they'll shut it down. They won't let you in America. State Department reviews 50,000 visas, analyzing social media accounts to see if you have ever tweeted something anti-Semitic. That's literally our immigration policy. If you're an illegal immigrant working on a farm, you can stay. If you're European, but you criticized Israel on Twitter, you are banned from coming into America. Who is it really all for? It was never for us. And I'll tell you this, it was never for Catholics either. Think about how Trump treated Catholics in 24 versus how he treated Jews. In 2024, when Trump downplayed the issue of abortion, Catholics revolted. And you should have seen what the Republicans said about the Catholics. They said, shut the fuck up. You're not serious. If you're going to not vote for Trump over this, then we don't want you. You don't have what it takes to win, blah, blah. I mean, think about it. The administration, the campaign, totally offended and alienated Catholics. And when Catholics got mad, they basically said, well, deal with it. What are you going to do? Go with the other side? Would they ever do that to Jews? Would they ever do that to the pro-Israel crowd? Obviously not. It's the opposite. It's the actual opposite. So if you're losing people like this, she gets fired from the Religious Liberty Board. What even is the Trump administration for at this point? It's not pro-free speech. It's not pro-religious liberty. It's not anti-war. It's not reindustrializing the economy. It's not nativist. It's not restrictionist. Like, what is it even for? What was the purpose of this government, actually? When you take a look around, what was the purpose of it? When you look at social media and legacy media, is it more pro-Israel and censored or less? It's certainly more than it was in 24. When you look at education, was there more freedom of speech on campus before or less? Certainly there's less now after Trump went to Harvard and Columbia and UPenn and took all their money away. Everywhere you look, the administration has failed to do the things that it promised that it would do for its voters, failed to uphold the values, actually, that conservative voters have, that right-wing populist voters have, and the things that have actually tangibly been done, the real victories, it's for these people. Larry Ellison controlling TikTok is a victory for them. Harvard having to agree to these terms from the Department of Education, that's a victory for them. Going to war with Iran, that's a victory for them. 50,000 anti-Semites banned from the visa program, that's a victory for them. What about everybody else? It's totally insane. And that's why I say, look, I shouldn't even say it. I was going to use a slur here, but I'm talking about this woman. I don't want her to get in trouble for my defense of her. But I see people on Twitter defending this administration, and I just think, how raped can you possibly be? How mind raped can you be to defend an administration that does nothing for you but everything for everybody else? You're out there plan trusting. You're out there doing apologia. You're an apologist for this administration. You defend everything to the hilt. People criticize Trump. You tell them, you're just not serious. You just don't get it. It's five-dimensional chess. I'm a plan truster. Think about this. And what does Trump do for you? What does he do for everybody else? Excuse me. What about our civil rights as Catholics? Do we have any? Our civil rights as Christians, or do we just get a J.D. Vance speech at the March for Life? Thanks, but no thanks, pal. And that's really what it is. For all of us, we get the tokens, we get the gestures, we get these performative gestures. I'm sick of it. That's really what it is. Don't you understand? It's sort of like black people in the Democrat Party. Conservatives, white people, Christians, we just get like ribbons, bro. We get nothing. We are on the GOP plantation. They ask for our vote. They do nothing for us. We are on the GOP plantation as white slaves. And the GOP comes around. They do these grand performative gestures. And you know what? I'm going to say it. America's a Christian nation. And we go, oh my gosh, he just said it. We are winning. And then they get in and they pull shit like this. Then they do nothing. They enshrine gay marriage into law. A Republican Senate did that. Think about this. In 2022 or 2023, was it? When the government enshrined gay marriage into law to protect it after Roe was overturned, Republicans voted to do this. So if you think about it from the perspective of like a social conservative, of like that's your most important issue. Yeah, oh, well, we're going to go to March for Life and give a speech, and then you go and do something like that. And you go and give a speech and say, you know what, we're going to deport all the illegal aliens. Then you don't. So we get the speech, we get the pat on the head, we get a little sticker, we get a little patch for our coat, and every interest group gets what they actually are asking for. And I'm just the person that's saying we should demand something tangible here. And it really needs to sink in that we are not in charge here, okay? You are not in charge. We are right-wing populists. We are the people. We are the American people. And our representatives should be working for us. They should be delivering for us. I'm not saying you can't deliver for some of the interests. You need money to run for office, but you need to look out for us too. The country has elites and the country has the people. Yes, I understand there are some things that need to happen for the maintenance of society, but the people have been getting screwed for a long time. And the message of the show is, look, you're not in charge. Who is actually in charge? Who's actually has the important positions? It's Jews, atheists, liberals. It's these types of people. And that's why they get all the advantages. That's why they get all the privileges and the benefits, and we get screwed. So you want the country to resemble your vision? You need people with your values actually in the positions of power, using power. This is embarrassing. It's like a Catholic who isn't on board with Israel is on some commission. It's like they're going to make recommendations. You can't even have that position if you're not a slave to Israel. If you are not completely obsequious to the state of Israel, you can't even have a seat on this commission. Forget about you're a secretary, a cabinet level post. Forget about you're the president, vice president. You can't even have a position on some recommendation making body that isn't even getting attention unless you are absolutely in the pocket. What does that say about who runs our country and who doesn't? So that's why the message of the show is that Jews have too much power. The message is not, I disagree with the actions of the Israeli government. No. Jews have too much power. Does that make me an anti-Semite? I don't give a f***. Tucker Carlson called me an anti-Semite again. Did you see this? Tucker was interviewed by Doug Wilson, who is getting money from somewhere, who funded his big compound he just got recently. And why all of a sudden is he glazing Israel all the time? What happened to him? but he's one of these theonomy Christian nationalists. He's in bed with Yoram Azoni. He's in bed with the Israelis. He's a scumbag. He's interviewing Tucker Carlson, and Tucker calls me an anti-Semite. He says, I disagree with Nick Fuentes because he beats up on girls and he's an anti-Semite. And the difference between me and Tucker Carlson is that Tucker says that the problem is the Israeli government is doing things we don't like. My problem is Jews have too much power over a Christian nation. America's a Christian nation. It was founded by Christians, built by Christians, settled by Christians, and it was born from Christian civilization. Everything that we love about America was born from Christianity. Everything. You don't have America. You don't have Europe. You don't have Western civilization without Christianity. It would be unrecognizable without it. This is a Christian nation, but clearly it doesn't feel like one anymore because you can blaspheme Christ all day long. There's no prayer in schools. There's no societal standards, no Christian values. What you do have, though, is something resembling a Jewish cult at the center of everything that cannot be critiqued or acknowledged. It is sacrilegious to criticize Jews. It is sacrilegious to question the Holocaust. You do have recognition of the Jewish holidays in the schools. Everything is catered towards them. And that is because they have too much power. That is because they have power in finance, media, Hollywood, politics. And they use that power to cancel anybody that criticizes them and talks about them. And I have a problem with that. No, this is not okay, actually. Hey, Tucker, this is not okay. It's not okay that the ADL is able to overrule free speech. And what kind of group are they? It's not okay that Bill Ackman can go to his friend Larry Fink at BlackRock and say, we're going to blacklist anybody that protested Israel in college. It's not okay that Harvard was deprived of all their money so that they could fire their president and replace her with a Jewish doctor. None of that is okay. It's not okay that Larry Ellison is in control of TikTok with its new Jewish CEO. No, they have too much influence, and they have abused it. We got rid of all the quotas. We got rid of all the discrimination. Everything was equal rights and actually affirmative action. We opened the way for Jews to ascend and become the new elite, and they have abused their power. The Jews have ruthlessly and cynically wrested power away from guilty WASPs, from guilty white people. They have hoarded the influence and the wealth, and now they are abusing it. They're abusing it for their own purposes to the detriment of everybody else, and it needs to stop. And the only reason that it goes on is because people are afraid. There's more of us than there are of them. And if we stood up, their game would be over. So what do? They isolate people. They isolate anybody that criticizes them, and they make an example out of them, and they create a chilling effect. They make it so that you can't buy and sell. You can't have access to a platform. You can't come into the party. You're banned from the organization. You're banned from the industry. You can't be friends with people, seen with people. That's what they did to me. That's what they do to everybody. If you make it clear that you are not on board with this diabolical regime. And that's the problem. So Tucker says that's anti-Semitic. I don't care what you call it. It's the truth. Is the truth anti-Semitic? I do not support Zionism. I do not support our Jewish overlords. I am a Catholic. I do not think that Jewish people that deny Christ or that are just hedonists, I don't think they should have power over us. I think Christians should have power in the country. Not Jews, Christians. You have your country. That excuse is stale. They say, well, but what about us? We're this tiny minority. Yeah, well, if you ever get too uncomfortable, there's the exit sign. You got a country that's Jewish. This is a Christian country. And in this Christian country, people have rights and they have dignity and they have freedom to practice their religion. So it's actually a pretty good deal, but you've been abusing your power for far too long. Don't tell me it's about the organized neocons. The organized neocons canceled Pat Buchanan, he says. It ain't the neocons. They called him an anti-Semite, not an anti-neocon. That's what it is. That's what's going on. And everybody knows that. But anyway, that's that. I do want to move on. We're going to get into our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say about this.
The chickens have come home to roost. I was reminded of a Malcolm X quote, and this was regarding, actually, I think he said this with JFK. When JFK was assassinated, he got in a lot of trouble. And this reminds me of the chickens coming home to roost. Now, he was talking about violence. America visits so much violence upon everywhere else that it's not surprising that that violence then comes back home to America. And by the way, y'all need to tap into America First, AmericaFirst.plus. Yo, go get into this group message, because I'm clowning into this group message right now. I'm going back and forth, but yeah, we got something brewing, because I put a graphic. Maybe I'll put it on here. I'll put it on here where it was Nick in his America First show, but it was featuring the black guy in the corner. So that's how I am, man, from a manifestation standpoint, but also I know I'll bring some value, and I know that would be a dope convo. And I know that it can get hard creating content every single day. How do I know? Because when I do my live show, it's hard doing that every day. And especially I have other work to do. But even if you're just talking in front of an audience, especially how Nick does it, where he's not reviewing anything, he's just giving y'all the dialogue, it can get tough. And I think that it'll work in a lot of ways, where sometimes when you engage in convos, it allows others who otherwise wouldn't even be tapping in, and it just allows different perspectives to be shared. And I think that allows the conversation to grow. But neither here nor there. Let's get into the video. The chickens have come home to roost. Now, what exactly do I mean when it comes to this? I'm going to focus on the second thing that Nick was talking about first. Then we'll wrap up with the Iran talks, which is, yeah, more of the same. So this is maybe why I'm focusing more so on this topic. When you think about how America was colonized, when you think about the world map, right? Look at the world, how a lot of the countries have been colonized. You think about what France is doing with certain countries in Africa. I think we spoke about it the other day, where France literally has extortion, an extortion deal with one of these African nations. I forget which one it is, where, is it Congo? No, that was Leopold. I'm not sure, but the African country has to give all of their resources, their natural resources that are in their country, to France, and then they have to buy it back from France. So the chickens have come home to roost. Now, what I'm talking about is more so from a standpoint of manifest destiny and doctrine of discovery. If you're familiar with those two things, especially the doctrine of discovery, what it gave was the right for Christians to go and conquer any nation that wasn't already Christian, take their land and do whatever with their people that they may, take over their land, colonize, right? Imperialism, whatever you want to call it. And why I say the chickens have come home to roost, what is Nick complaining about? Rightfully so in a lot of ways. Nick's complaining about Israel, right? Complaining about Israel using us and all these different things. Israel is just using the same game plan that European countries used. How was America created? Oh, yeah, these countries in that region, oh, yeah, they're not Jewish. So therefore, we have the right to not only take their land, we have the right to continue ethnically cleansing. We have the right to commit a genocide. We have the right to bomb all these different countries around us and take as much land as we want. They're not worshiping the same religion that we are, so we have that right. It's the same thing. And this is why it gets tough when you involve religion in government. And a lot of people go back and forth on what separation of church and state actually meant. But just from a standpoint of when you have religion, and especially in America, is the most confusing thing, because it's Judeo-Christian values, when Jewish values and Christian values are probably the most polar opposites in a lot of ways compared to a lot of other religions. Ask somebody Jewish what they think about Jesus. What do they think he was? And you're going to get a totally different answer than a Christian or even a Muslim and what they think about Jesus. So when you have these Judeo-Christian values, and clearly, as Nick said, our country is not a Judeo-Christian country. as far as who it's ran by. You can look at certain cultural aspects and say it's Christian, you could say it's Catholic, Protestant, whatever it is that you want to say. But when it comes down to who's running the country, we know what's up. We know what's up. This was the perfect example, this Religious Liberty Commission with Carrie Prejean Boller, and hopefully I'm pronouncing her name correctly. But I saw a lot of the back and forths. She didn't say anything wrong to me, and I thought that that was the perfect place to have a lot of these conversations where it's like, is it anti-Semitism just because I don't believe in the same thing that you believe? Just because I don't believe that God gave you this land so you can have your kingdom on earth? The doctrine that I believe is more so a kingdom either within or in heaven, however you want to look at it. I believe that the kingdom is within all of us. And I want to make sure that I'm quoting Nick correctly. So let me go to the notes real quick because I think he commented on this. Yeah, he said Jesus believed in a heavenly kingdom, just not on earth. So in the back and forth exchange that she was saying, I believe she was talking to one of the former students that was expressing certain anti-Semitism that was anti-Semitic behavior that was occurring on campus. And she was saying both to him and then I think it was a rabbi where she's like, oh, so if I just don't believe that God gifted you land or that God was trying to create a kingdom of heaven on earth, am I anti-Semitic? And they were kind of going back and forth, but let's just call a spade a spade. If you don't believe in Zionism, a lot of people who are running the country, who are running the world, not the rabbis in New York City that actually do come out and protest and say like all this Zionism, it's actually against Judaism. And a lot of people have been saying that type of stuff for a while, where a lot of people are just using the religion of Judaism to create a big real estate project. And it has nothing to do with the actual religion. But why did I say the chickens have come home to roost? This is the same thing that, unfortunately, if you're Christian, you may not want to acknowledge that, but this is the same ideology that was used to commit demonic behavior, violating God's commandments and taking over people's land. You were violating Christian principles, violating God in the name of God. Like you're using the name of God to commit all these atrocities and take over people's land, pillage, do whatever it is that you want to do with them. And you're doing it in the name of God, but you're violating all of God's commandments. Like how disrespectful is that, right? That's how we should look at it. And hold on, I'm just making sure that we can't have that grape word on here. So I got to make sure that I mention that I take note and we edit that out. But it's no different. It's no different. The same reason that they believe that they are above and beyond, or based on their actions. I'm not even talking about the whole chosen people, or as far as blanketing it with all of Jewish people, but that is the dominant culture. We talk about this all the time. Yeah, all black people aren't out here just committing black on black crime. All black people aren't on here looking like Cardi B or looking like a music video, like a drill music video, but that largely represents a lot of our culture. And it's a dominant aspect of our culture. Now, a lot of people say that's not black culture. How is it not? It's not my culture that I adopt or that I subscribe to, that I'm attracted to, but it has impacted me, just like culture impacts a lot of people that are surrounded by it or that touch it. So when it comes to what we're seeing as far as Zionism, yeah, you just think that you could take these people's land. You think that these people are less than you. You think they're the goyim or whatever word that they use. You think that everybody else is here to just serve you. You think that those Palestinian lives that you're killing and destroying their entire state, destroying everything. But perhaps it's because you learned from the last time. The last time when you took Israel, you took their keys, right? You just moved in their homes and changed the locks. Never gave them money for their land, never gave them money for their homes, never gave them the right to return. And the United Nations, I believe that's when they came out, or whoever was the governing body at the time, I think it was the United Nations, where they came out, and of course they only make recommendations, but the recommendations that they were making was, hey, you have to allow these people to return home. And if you're taking their land, which is a violation that you can't do, you can't just win a war against a country and then just take all private property from the citizens of that country. You can't do that. I believe that was a rule that was put in place after World War II. So knowing that you can't do that, they did it. Why do you think that they justified doing it? But they learned from that, because now it's like, okay, this is why we have to bulldoze everything, because then nobody can have a home to come home to. Nobody will have a building to come home to. There's nothing there. So you don't even know which part of this is your land. So it seems like a lot of this stuff was strategic, but this is why, once again, the chickens have come home to roost. Now, this doesn't mean that just because, America was conquered, or what was America was conquered to create America, that America should just be complicit in allowing anybody else to do the same thing. That was years ago. We don't have to be complicit. And more so, as an American, I don't want another country and people who just have a whole lot of money, who have another country's interest before America's. I don't want them running things. I don't want them bullying our politicians. And if they can bully Trump, we've already seen how they'll bully other people. Trump was just the person that we thought wouldn't be able to be bullied. But we were wrong on that. So here we have this Religious Liberty Commission, where this lady, just for asking questions that are super relevant, questions that we're all thinking like, hold on. As y'all run around and take control of TikTok and other social media platforms, and y'all are trying to silence and censor everybody. And I think on TikTok, it's now considered hate speech if you use Zionism not in a favorable way. Like, she was asking those questions, and then she gets kicked off. She gets kicked off because she's trying to clarify, like, hold on, if I just don't believe in your doctrine, if I just don't believe in you having a country and it being given by God, and you creating that country based on what you did to the Palestinian people living there. So if I just don't agree with that, I'm an anti-Semite. And then it brings you to a whole nother conversation. Okay, I'm an anti-Semite. Who are the real Semites? Who are the real Semites? Can't you trace that? Can't you do blood tests? Don't the blood tests of Palestinians come back to be pretty closely related to those that we call the Semites, or that are the actual Semites? So all of this stuff is just more of the same. It's just people using whatever label they identify with to commit whatever atrocity to another group of people that don't identify with that label, to be powerful over them, to take what they have and to just build more resources for them. This is what the Greater Israel Project is. How can you be convinced that it's not? And this is a slap in the face, as Nick mentioned, when it comes to Donald Trump, and especially J.D. Vance, who Nick said recently converted to Catholicism. How can you not speak on this? But we see who's getting bullied, and it's right in front of our face. And a lot of people are scared to say something like a J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, you went over there as a Catholic, as the Vice President of America. And these people, while you were over there, voted to annex the West Bank after Donald Trump said that he would never allow Israel to annex the West Bank. And they voted on it and approved it while you were there. The level of disrespect. If that's not letting you know who's boss, who runs things, and I don't know what else is. So will J.D. Vance speak out on it? Probably not. Will Trump speak out on it? Probably not. And I feel like I'm being very gracious when I even say probably. This is just, they are just using the playbook that probably was created by, and I'm not even going to say that European colonizers were the first ones to create this playbook. I'm not saying that at all. If you look back at the history of, even in that region with the Arab slave trade, Arabs did the same thing with the Arab slave trade. Go look at the Arab slave trade, a lot more vicious than the alleged transatlantic slave trade. A lot more vicious based on the things that I've learned about it. And it went on for, what, maybe twice as long as the transatlantic slave trade? So this is not anything that I'm pointing the finger at any particular group for starting, but they are just repeating the cycle that a lot of people have always used. And people have always used religion because it justifies. How else would you get a country of people to agree and be complicit in you taking over and violating other people's rights, committing atrocities to them that they would never want committed against them? How else would you convince a country that that's okay? How else would you convince an army that that's okay? How else could you convince people to take pride in committing that type of demonic death and destruction? The same people that supposedly align with certain religious principles that those actions that they're committing directly violate. How else would you do it? You have to say, these people do not believe in God. They're ungodly. They're beastly. And the best way to do that is to say, hey, they don't believe in the same God as us. They're different than us. And once you create a religion, once you create a boundary amongst religion, people care less. People will justify the behavior more. And then you can always find a story in the Bible or whatever religious scripture people are, whatever religious scripture for your particular religion, you could always find something in there to interpret, or maybe I should say misinterpret, in order to convince people that, hey, what you're doing is okay. I mean, when you look at the Old Testament, which is the Torah, right? Largely the Torah. When you look at the story of the Amalekites, then it's pretty easy to understand why Bibi Netanyahu and Israel believe that they have the God-given right to commit these atrocities and to commit a genocide against the Palestinian people. They've said it. Their leaders have said it. Bibi Netanyahu has said it. He's referenced the Amalekites. He's referenced the Palestinians. And if you know that story, it's not about just going after Hamas. That's not what the Amalekites references. It goes after everybody. Kill the women, kill the children, kill the kids, kill the family pet, kill the cattle, kill everybody. Go look at the story. And this is why I believe largely one of the reasons why Jesus was supposed to bring a new way of life, the new covenant. And you can obviously understand that if they were living by the old rules, the old covenant, and Jesus comes into play, obviously that would oppose and wake up a whole lot of people to seeing the world in a different way, to perhaps bringing the light out of people, showing people that we are the light, raising the frequency of that light within all of us to the point where we're not comfortable engaging in a lot of this demonic behavior that otherwise we would just be complicit in. Could you imagine if we were still living by those Old Testament rules? Could you imagine? So Carrie Prejean Boller, the one thing that I am happy about is in these days and times, this is on camera. So what ended up happening, I didn't know who Carrie Prejean Boller was. And now people are aware of her. She's able to tell her story. She's able to stand on the things that she wants to stand on and push her agenda. And we're able to see this in real time. Like, wait, she asked a question. So anybody that just doesn't believe in Zionism, now they're an anti-Semite? And then she gets kicked off the board for asking these questions, getting accused of hijacking the conversation. What else are you there to talk about? It's a religious liberty commission. People need to understand, wait, this is off limits. This is offensive. Like, if I don't just go along with your religious doctrine, this country was supposedly founded on Christian values. But if I don't go along with your Zionist doctrine, then I'm a bad person. I get kicked off the board. But you're not going along with the Catholic scriptures. You're not going along with the Catholic doctrine. You're not going along with the Christian doctrine. So why would, y'all get what I'm saying, right? It's like, we're supposed to be, and this is why I always laugh when we say we're founded on Judeo-Christian values or Christian values. It's just not that. It's just not that. This reminds me of a buddy of mine, Jewish guy, pretty relevant name. He had some things to do with the TEDx conferences. And I was asking him, and I was asking him some things, and he was talking about, we had a conversation about the benefits of being the minority, being the smaller group. It's easier to control. It's easier to move in a lot of ways. It's easier to get stuff done. So it's almost like it's beneficial for this to be a Catholic or seen as a Catholic or Christian country. It's beneficial for Zionists because they can kind of hide behind, pushing their Jewish agenda or their Zionist agenda, because I don't even think that the two are the same based on, neither here nor there, but pushing their Zionist agenda, because if America was seen as Zionist, they probably wouldn't be able to get away with a lot of the things that America has been complicit in supporting Israel for. Like, our eyes would be more open to it. But they have to make us think that this is a Christian country. They have to make us think that while they control the puppets, right? They're the people pulling the puppet strings. And now it's just so prevalent, it's right in front of our face, so we can't even deny it. Nick said that the entire country is under a spell of this false religion. And who knows what's false and what's not when it comes to religion. And this is why it's such a challenging topic for me, because who's to say that your way is the right way compared to this way being the right way? And as soon as you create these boundaries from a religious standpoint, because people hold that close to heart maybe more than anything else in their lives, right? It's an attack. When you attack my religion, you're attacking me. You're attacking my entire existence. You're attacking my grandmother that passed down the religion to me. You're attacking all these different things in my life that I give everything to, that I care the most about. So that's why religious conversations, religious dynamics will always lead to war in a lot of ways. Whether it's internal war, whether it's another country, whether it's whatever. If you don't believe in the same things that I believe in, we can always convince our people to commit whatever atrocities we want for our own agenda, even if it is not the real reason, that we're actually going to war. Even I can always create the 9/11. Oh, Osama bin Laden and them did that? Okay, well, we're going to use that to justify continuing this war in Iraq. Let's get that back up and running. And Americans just sit back with our American flags after 9/11. We're just taking pride in America. Yeah, somebody's got to pay. Doesn't matter who, somebody's got to pay. You see what ends up happening? How do we think when we think about Muslim countries? What comes to mind? Think about all the propaganda that we receive when it comes to Muslim countries. It's almost as if, wait, every Muslim's a jihadist or a radical? Every Muslim's is going to strap something on their chest and willing to risk it all and commit whatever Amalekite atrocity to push their religion? And a lot of times we're listening to the propaganda and being convinced that one group of people are animals, they're beasts, right? They can't be tamed. They're savages. While the other country is just using that to justify committing savage acts on them. So it's, the chickens have come home to roost. So I don't know where this is going to go. I guess we can now move the conversation into Iran. But before we get into that, I think I want to touch on real quick what Nick mentioned as far as it's like the black people with the Democratic Party. That's exactly what it is. And I've talked about this before. I think we mentioned it yesterday. I got so turned off by the Democrats because they just look at us as pawns, black people. They just think, oh, we're going to vote for them regardless because we convinced them that all Republicans are just racist and don't care about black people. So therefore, we're going to get their votes. So we'll make all these promises to them while we're running and trying to get their vote while we're running. But then when we actually get in office, we don't got to do anything for them. Who do you focus on? The people that you've already sold something to or the people that you're trying to sell something to? Largely, we take for granted the people that we already have, and we try to make sure that we're going after and spending more time on the people that we don't have. We take those people for granted. And that's exactly what has happened with a lot of these MAGA folk, a lot of Republicans. People are just riding whatever Trump says, going whatever. Oh, yeah. At first, it was standing with Trump because we agree with his policies. Now it's just, trust the process. Yeah, he's doing the opposite of everything that he said he would do, but it's strategic. Oh, but it's better than Biden. It's like that's exactly the problem. That's how we create this back and forth with Democrats and Republicans, and we brew this chaos that just allows us to get manipulated and controlled. So let's keep it moving. Do I have anything to say when it comes to Iran? We got this 10-day countdown of a potential war. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows that we want to make a deal. Americans, like, I don't think Americans overall want to go to a war with Iran. It's like, why? What's that going to mean? Americans dying? Like, why? Like, what is going to come from that? Violence only begets violence, right? So what is the purpose of not having some type of negotiation with them? A deal is desirable for America, like Nick said. A deal is desirable for Iran. And what did he say? He said for the Gulf. But when it comes to Israel, come on, bro. We know what's going on. We know that Bibi Netanyahu's goal is not to create some sort of peace treaty or anything other than something that will allow him to create or continue creating this Greater Israel project. So I really don't have much more on this, but it's and one thing that we may want to be careful. So for a lot of people that are okay or complicit and just going along with, well, it's all right, we'll just go to war with them. It won't be anything much. It won't be too long. Yeah, it's not too much until it is. It's not too much until it is. And we don't know how a lot of these other countries in the region are going to act when we start, if we start, hopefully not. But if we decide to start bombing and getting into a war with Iran, we do not know how a lot of these other countries are going to react. We do not know what's going to come from that. And let's show that we are truly a Christian country, that we do actually follow Jesus' principles. Because wasn't Jesus and God teaching through the Bible that you get rewarded when you're able to diffuse and walk away from a situation rather than fight, rather than engage? I thought that's what was supposed to be celebrated. I thought vengeance is for God only. I thought violence only begets violence. All these different principles. Why are we allowing ourselves to violate our principles because of our greatest ally? If our greatest ally forces us to violate our religion's commandments, then how is that our greatest ally? So I'll leave y'all with that. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day. I'm going to get back into this group chat. Like I said, man, if you want to get in that group chat, it's americafirst.plus. Yeah, they going, it's hey, be careful getting in there. Know what to expect. If you got a soft heart, if you emotional, then this may not be the best group message for you. But other than that, you know, I get in there, I clown, I have my little back and forth, you know, people throwing around that N-word and whatnot. What you give power grows, right? So I'll just leave it at that. And y'all like, y'all subscribe, continue to check out the Black Guy in the Corner page. I'm trying to figure out the best balance because I want to get that page going, but also obviously want to be posting stuff on here. So you may see some reposts, not on any of these videos, really, I don't think, unless I'm cutting it up, just doing different segments on the different channels. I don't want to just be doubling up the same content. But for some of the other stuff, you may get a little repost here and there. But other than that, appreciate y'all. Like, subscribe, turn your notifications on. Word to Big Bro Robert reminding us that we need to control the algorithm and never let the algorithm control us. And on that note, I shall see y'all soon. Ew.
TB, GI, It's the black guy in the corner. But they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it. Bro, I'll meet you there. 1600 Penn, Wash, DC. Swear I saw the vision riding through the DMV. I envision prayers, but I could do VP. Hillbilly, Elegy, fuck, I look like JD. Shout out my cheat code, Dave and Karen raised me. And my big bro, a nuclear family. And they don't like that. Strong fathers in the crib, BLM for dad. OBJ society created all that. Victimhood mentality, I can't embrace that. And everything they taught in school, assume it's all cap. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Ain't no introduction, just some fun facts. In case you were wondering, I am that. I know you heard me hit it 3 times for Dr. Umar. Shout out to Umar, man. We ain't kicking nobody when they down. And shout out to everybody that continues to show love, support, appreciating the message that I'm giving y'all along with the bro Nick's message. We gonna keep pushing, man. And shout out to the haters too, cause y'all in the comments heavy too. y'all the ones that gave me the inspiration to create this song. They kept saying like, who's the random black guy in the corner? I am.